Good morning, Excellencies and delegates. We are about to start the session. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CSTD session this morning. I declare this session open so that we can settle down. I have the honor to introduce the high-level panel on data for development. This is item 3A on the agenda of the 27th session of the Commission. It is also one of the two priority themes that were approved by the CSTD at its session last year. The objective of this high-level panel is to discuss the current state of data-enabled technologies and their future outlook in the context of data-driven development. It will explore the roles of both international and national stakeholders in designing governance frameworks that aim to maximize the positive impact of data on sustainable development while simultaneously minimizing associated risks and challenges. We have several panelists with us today, and they will seek to address the following questions. 1, what should be done now to unleash the full potential of data and data-enabled technologies for societal benefit? Which policies are required to mitigate and resolve the risks and threats associated with data and data-enabled technologies? The second question is, how can data and data-driven innovation affect development potential and the achievement of the SDGs? 3, what measures are necessary to ensure the inclusivity and representation of marginalized groups in data collection and analysis processes to prevent biases and ensure equitable outcomes in the pursuit of the SDG? And 4, how can international standards and best practices for data governance be developed to facilitate cross-border collaboration on global challenges? Those are the questions for our consideration. Before we start with the panel, let me first invite Ms. Shamika Shiremani, our Director of the Division on Technology and Logistics, to introduce the report of the Secretary General for this item. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, and the report of the Secretary General on data for development has been prepared by the Secretariat based on information provided by 30 member states and international organizations on good practices and lessons learned, as Chair just mentioned. So at the outset, I would like to acknowledge these contributions that helped to make the report insightful and at the same time pragmatic. So in this introduction of the SDGs report, I will focus on 3 key aspects of the role of data in sustainable development. These are promises of data for sustainable development, navigating the complexities of the data-driven world, and finally, the global data governance. So to start with the promises of data, ladies and gentlemen, the starting point of the report is that data are becoming increasingly important, not only as an economic, but also as a strategic resource. From the first perspective, data are considered an economic resource in the value chain. Then the processing of data forms the foundation of innovative business models. And these innovations have the potential to increase productivity, to bring about significant changes resulting in new markets and new value sources. From a more strategic perspective, data can help us address some of the global development challenges, such as pandemics and climate change. For instance, managing a pandemic, real-time data about infection rates, vaccine efficacy, and public health measures across borders can significantly influence the strategies adopted by nations. And this we saw during COVID-19. Reliable data are needed to understand where to allocate scarce resources, when to enforce actions, and how to respond to rapidly evolving scenarios at the global level. So that's the public or the strategic development dimension of data. So, ladies and gentlemen, benefiting from data is far from straightforward and demands numerous prerequisites across various domains, and the Secretary General takes you through many of these prerequisites. First and foremost, ensuring high-quality data is critical. Without high-quality data, meaning that data that are accurate, complete, timely, relevant, and consistent, any insights derived or decisions made could be erroneous, biased, and also harmful. And then equally critical is the interoperability of data across diverse technological systems. So in our interconnected world, this means it is essential that different data systems, applications, and devices can exchange and use data seamlessly, basically talk to each other, to the systems to talk to each other. However, access to high-quality interoperable data on a robust infrastructure is not the end of the story. Countries must have the necessary skills and capabilities to transform raw data into actionable insights and informed decisions. Some of these examples will be presented to us by our esteemed panel. This involves significant investment in data literacy, analytical skills, and technical know-how within the respective labor forces. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is crucial to acknowledge that the benefits of the data economy are not automatic or evenly distributed. Many facets of connectivity divides, we talked about them yesterday, from the ITU Secretary General to our UNCTAD Secretary General, how 1/3 of the people are still not connected to the internet. And these things add to the disparities in access to and control of data. And this is, we see, there are widening existing inequalities in this data realm. These difficulties disproportionately impact low-income countries and hinder their equitable participation in the global data economy. This status quo not only challenges the fairness of the data economy, but also raises ethical questions about the concentration of power among a few global digital platforms, their lack of accountability, biased algorithms that we hear about, and the violation of human rights in a data-driven world. In light of these challenges, there is a pressing need for international cooperation on data governance. Such collaboration is vital to ensure that the benefits of the data economy are accessible to all and not just for a few. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, so now let me turn to the importance of data governance. SG's report argues that data governance should find a balance between risk avoidance and the promotion of innovation. To advance data governance for development consistent with the imperatives of multilateralism, multi-stakeholder approach, and multidisciplinary consideration of data, Secretary General proposes 7 principles in his reports. And the very first one, and the foremost, is that the governance of data and data-enabled technologies should be consistent with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The pursuit of economic development driven by data-enabled technologies must not come at the expense of ethical considerations. This includes ethical data collection practices, informed consent, and robust data security measures. The responsibility of upholding the balance between the ethical, strategic, and economic considerations falls on all stakeholders involved in the governance of data and digital technologies. And that's the message of the Secretary General's report. This includes governments, that are responsible for enacting and enforcing laws and regulations of the land. Private sector, particularly technology companies, that must ensure their practices are ethical, and academia, civil society, youth, and technical communities that play a crucial role in advocating for and monitoring compliance with these principles. Moreover, multilateralism is essential for the development of robust governance frameworks for cross-border data in order to address global challenges such as climate change and pandemics, and to ensure that developing countries that do not produce these technologies but do feel the impacts have a seat at the table in such deliberations. Leveraging existing multilateral spaces and processes is the way forward. In this context, the Secretary General's report proposes the establishment of a dedicated working group within the CSTD that would engage in a holistic multi-stakeholder dialogue on the fundamental principles of global inclusive framework for data governance under the auspices of the United Nations. As a secretariat to the CSTD, I would like to know we stand ready to facilitate such an effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Seremani, for this presentation and insights. Let me now turn to our panelists. I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Sunil Wadhwani, the co-founder Wadhwani AI, to take the floor. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My background is a little different, I think, than most folks in this room, so I'll just give you a minute of background just to provide some context for my remarks. I'm an entrepreneur. I grew up in India, moved to the US, went to Carnegie Mellon University, and I've started several companies since that time, all of them in the field of technology, everything from healthcare, life sciences, medical care, information technology. I've taken many of these companies public. Some of these companies have failed. So at the end of the day, I've learned with a lot of scars on my back, two things. Number one, how to apply technology to real world problems. And number two, the challenges in scaling up these technology solutions. And I'll come back to this because I think for our discussion on AI and data, that's very relevant. So although I'm based in the US, as I said, I run several companies. About 10 years ago, I set up my first nonprofit foundation in India, a public health foundation, to transform healthcare systems in low-income communities using technology and innovation. So at this stage, we run over 1,000 clinics around India in low-income communities. We treat over 10 million people a year with free healthcare. And we use technology throughout the value chain, from setting up electronic health records, smart diagnostic devices, telehealth, clinical decision support systems, et cetera, et cetera. So we're actually employing these systems at a fair amount of scale. About 5 years ago, when AI was now coming on everyone's radar, it wasn't as visible as it is today. I happen to have had the privilege of serving on the board of trustees of Carnegie Mellon University, which is one of the global leaders in AI research and teaching. So through that position, we would interact with Google, with Microsoft, with multiple other AI companies. And what struck me was that there's all this great work being done in AI, a lot of good stuff being done, but it's all being applied largely for commercial purposes. Microsoft, Google, everyone else. Everything being done over there at this stage will help the top 3 or 4 billion people in the world, but there's relatively little being done, even today, that'll help the bottom 3 or 4 billion people in the world. Like, how do we take these very powerful AI systems and apply them on the ground to improve healthcare for people in low-income communities, improve education, improve agriculture for poor farmers, and so on? So 5 years back, my brother and I launched a nonprofit foundation, also in India, called the Wadhwani Institute for Artificial Intelligence. We've grown now to over 250 full-time people at the Institute, some of the world's leading AI and machine learning experts. We have a very large, high-quality software engineering group, which is very important to link up with AI and ML. We have domain experts in healthcare, agriculture, education, urban planning, and so on, because that's critical to think through how these systems will be actually applied. Right after we got started, COVID had just broken out. This was, March, April of 2020. Let me back up, in fact. When my brother and I launched the Institute in India, Prime Minister Modi of India came to inaugurate the Institute. And he made a tremendous set of comments in his inauguration speech for our Institute. He said that clearly, in terms of the development of application of AI for commercial purposes, the US and China are absolutely in the lead, and that's still very much true even today. All the other countries are behind, and we're trying to leverage on what's been done in the US and in China. However, Prime Minister Modi said that in the application of AI for social good, perhaps India and countries in the global south can be the global leaders in showing how to apply AI to actually improve the quality of lives of people in this bottom 3 or 4 billion across the world. So, as I said, right after we got launched, COVID broke out, and India, of course, a lot of COVID, like in most other countries. This was before the vaccines had come out, so systems were stressed, healthcare systems. And within India, Bombay, where I'm from, now called Mumbai, was the epicenter of COVID in India. So we got urgent calls from the government in the center as well as in Bombay saying, we need help. And can you develop AI algorithms that can help predict how this outbreak of COVID, how it will spread, geographically, how will it grow? And based on your predictions, what do we need to have on a hospital by hospital basis in terms of physicians, nurses, ICU beds, ventilators, et cetera, et cetera. Because globally, people were dying because you didn't have these resources available. So very quickly, we developed AI models, which we would then work with the government on to predict 4 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 12 weeks out, 16 weeks out, where the patients would be for COVID, where resources needed to go to which hospitals, which clinics, how many ventilators, doctors, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this, at the end of the day, the government told us, made a tremendous difference in terms of how effectively we were able to treat this epidemic as compared to not having these predictive models. So that was an early, very powerful indicator of the power of AI in addressing these issues. Since then, we've developed over 25 to 30 AI applications in healthcare, in education, and agriculture. In healthcare, for example, if you look at the SDGs for 2030, in SDG 3, which is health and wellness, perhaps the biggest goals we have to go after are how to reduce infant mortality, how to reduce maternal mortality, et cetera. Well, infant and maternal mortality largely come from cases of high-risk pregnancies in low-income communities, and where you've got lack of staff, even the staff that are there are not trained adequately, et cetera. Can we use AI to help with this? So we've developed AI systems in India that are currently being tested to predict which women who are in labor in these low-income communities, which ones are likely to have high-risk pregnancies, what complications are they likely to have, and what interventions can you make now to reduce risk? What interventions do you make at the time of childbirth, and what interventions do you make post-childbirth to reduce that overall risk of mortality, of morbidity, and of having a healthy child that will grow well? The government of India called us a couple of years ago and said, tuberculosis is a major challenge, and of course, it's a major challenge globally. Close to 2 million people die every year of TB. We've come up with a whole suite of AI solutions to detect pulmonary TB earlier than current methods, treating it better than current methods, and we have AI algorithms that will predict well ahead of time which TB patients are likely to fall off their medication, because those are the patients that develop MDR TB, multiple drug-resistant TB, And these are the patients who have a very high probability of dying or having lifelong health effects. So we predict who these patients are, and then the government focuses its caseworkers on these patients. So we make sure they don't fall off their medication and they have a successful outcome. As an example, in the field of education, the government asked us recently, about 6 months ago, that in these schools in low-income communities, children aren't reading at the grade level, they're not writing properly at the grade level. Can we use AI to help them? So we developed about a few months back an AI tool to assess oral reading fluency, which is a bedrock kind of assessment for children in school. We do this for kids 2 through 8. We've implemented the system in one state in India. In 6 months, we've assessed over 2 million children. And what we do is we get audio recordings of these kids reading just a few paragraphs from their textbooks. Our AI systems then analyze what they've read, diagnose very quickly what words they can read well, what words they're not able to read properly, and then we use that information to then guide the teachers on a personalized education program for each of these students. What that does is for students who are struggling with reading, we can identify specific plans to help each one improve, which then increases the odds of them getting better in school and reduces the odds of them dropping out of school. Over time, that has a huge impact. In agriculture, we've developed applications to help farmers to figure out what pests are likely to cause a problem for them that particular year and how to deal with those pests before they actually show up. So all of these different applications, as I said, we have 25 or 30 of them that are being scaled up in various parts of India. We have millions of users on our different applications. And now we're looking to see how do we take these to other countries, particularly in the global south. We've got the basic technology, and how do we contextualize this for other countries around the world? As we do all of this, of course, it's critical to keep in mind that all of these AI apps by themselves mean very little if you don't have the right digital infrastructure and the right people infrastructure. So at my AI Institute now, we're devoting a lot of time in capacity building within government. So we train very senior government officials in the government of India in various ministries, the health ministry, education ministry, agriculture ministry, and so on, very senior bureaucrats. What can AI do for you? What can it not do for you? What kind of data governance standards do we need? What types of data sets do we need? All governments have a ton of data, but as we all know, a lot of that data really isn't usable to train AI models. It's very poor quality, it's incomplete data, very often it's corrupt data, et cetera, and it's very difficult to train AI models on that kind of data. So how do we develop data governance frameworks? So we help government with that. As I said, we help with training of government officials because you need all of that infrastructure for your AI applications to really work well. So just to wrap up, in doing all of this, there's 5 or 6 lessons that I've learned that are critical if we really want to have impact at the ground level with AI and with data-enabled technologies. Number one, right now there is a lot of hype about AI. There is no question AI is real. Companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, etc. AI is moving very, very rapidly. Today, though, everything we hear about AI largely is focused on the commercial arena. In the social sector, you hear lots of one-off examples of AI being applied for A or B or C condition, but you will see very, very few examples of AI solutions that are truly scaling up, that are treating hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people. Very few examples like that. That will happen, but for that to happen, we need to keep 3 or 4 things in mind. Number one, as I said, digital infrastructure, building that digital infrastructure is absolutely key. This applies particularly to the global south. Developing internet connectivity, data governance standards, and of course, we're hearing a lot about that this week in this conference. We'll hear about that today on this panel. Absolutely key. Third thing is, as I said, the people infrastructure. We need to build capacity within governments so that people understand how to effectively use AI, how to use data. We need to build capacity, not just in government, but throughout the whole value chain, within civil society, within the beneficiaries who will actually use all of this. Otherwise, it's very tough to actually implement and get skill. The final point I'll make is this, and this is perhaps the most important point. We can develop great AI technical solutions, but if we do not give enough thought up front to how these solutions are actually going to be deployed in the field, if we don't think about how the frontline health worker will actually use this, how the frontline farmer will use these solutions, how the frontline teacher in schools will use these solutions, and we incorporate that thinking right from the beginning into designing the solutions, but as important, into thinking through upfront, what's the right pathway to scale? Which government department do we need to work with? Not just at the center, but which states are we going to execute this in? Which districts in which states will we work with? Do we have champions within government at each of these levels who will go out and push all of this for us? What kind of training is needed to make all of this happen? Only if we think all of this through up front will we then get the desired outcome that we all want over here, which is to use AI as a transformative force to improve the quality of lives for billions of people around the world who live currently in resource-challenged and low-income communities. Working together, I'm very confident that we can make this happen. Post the session, if there's anything that we can do from my institute to partner with or work with, anything that any of you are doing, please reach out to me, let's exchange cards, and then we can follow up in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wadawani, for this very insightful and brilliant remarks. I particularly like the pragmatism and the innovation that is solving real lives for our people. I will take my prerogative as chair to ask you to consider meaningful and collaborative partnership through CSTD so that it can be the platform to partner with member states. Can we take it that you will work with CSTD? Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm sure as member states listen to your presentation, we are all excited that this is going beyond rhetoric and desires, that there is practical work that is done on the field, whether it is in health or education or delivery of services. And this is indeed what we need. And I like the other twist, which is at the heart of the objective of CSTD, which is building competencies and capacity to solve real life social problems. So we look forward to furthering this engagement and discussion with you. Thank you so much for agreeing to work with CSTD on this. I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Asif Bhatti, Strategic Partnership-led OpenAI. You have the floor, sir.
Honorable Chair, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for sharing your time here today. Just by way of brief background, I come by way of a technical trade, so biomedical engineer, chemistry, and data scientist. I stopped short of a PhD, realizing the technology is moving much faster on the outside. However, weaving that into my professional experience has been interesting insofar as how does private and public sector benefit from the advancements that are made in the sciences, as was spoken yesterday, but even more so in the technologies as we're speaking about today with AI. So much of my experience has been focused on an international basis, both on the public and private sectors. Today, where I represent as OpenAI as the strategic partnerships lead, and our mission at OpenAI that I'll underscore is to build artificial general intelligence, AGI, that benefits all of humanity. If I briefly weave a little bit about my person, I'm of South Asian descent. I'm a born Aussie and raised American. And so there's a shared sense of humanity across those 3 countries and 3 regions that I have that is even more greatly represented in this very room at the United Nations. And so when we talk about ensuring all people, communities, societies, and cultures are not only able to access AI, but also be represented, that's truly what our mission here at OpenAI is. With respect to where we are today, the potential of AI is immense, and we've seen it, right? AI tools are broadly being used across the world and adopted across so many geographies. In just 16 months since ChatGPT was launched, according to a McKinsey report, 75% of people across the world have tried AI at least once. That's absolutely incredible. And that 40% of them use them regularly. During our Dev Day keynote, Sam noted that more than 2 million developers are using our API currently and doing incredible, amazing stuff, as noted earlier, that are specific to the localities and the communities, building products off of the platform. 92% of private sector Fortune 500 companies are building products off of this. And weekly we have 100 million active users now using ChatGPT. And so as the world starts to use this, what becomes important is how does the social sector, how does society and humanity, all of humanity, benefit from this? So as it's been discussed at the CSTD and in similar conversations around the world, AI can meaningfully accelerate the progress towards the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, but only if we work together to shape the benefit of AI and AGI deployment. And while today we won't talk about all of the use cases, there's a very large list of use cases that can be an accelerant to the SDGs and the net positive impact that they can deliver. And so to this end, it also requires that foundation models, like our AI models, are linguistically and culturally inclusive. So if I take a quick step back, despite AI being used across the world, the top 20 countries that excel in the adoption of AI benefit from strong inputs, such as data. We generally consider foundation models, human, people, and data and compute as key inputs to AI. However, access and use of data across the world varies, and in turn, that the benefit to all of humanity also does. And in terms of data, pre-training, in terms of model development, teaches language to a model. And by showing the model a wide variety of data and knowledge, it can then predict the wide variety of humanity that we have in a wide range of sequences. Human knowledge in all forms is useful to training and fine-tuning. Unstructured, large volume, text, audio, video, all of this is representative of the knowledge of humanity. So if we take a look at the future, data and compute are critical. I think that's been very noted in the public discourse around AI, but they're also 2 sides of the same coin. Access to knowledge and then data is critical for AI development to progress and provide a locally and culturally nuanced benefit. However, one point to note is knowledge resides widely across all of humanity and can be put into a form called data for use and access. And our desire to ensure knowledge is open, our desire is to ensure that all knowledge is open and accessible to all humans. So in thinking about this, knowledge and data access, we should consider 1, its use, and 2, its movement to support the development of AI models. On the use of knowledge through data, it's important to question how do we ensure that knowledge is available broadly for model training and refinement, i.e. fine-tuning for applications. A metaphor that I use with my nephew is I like to think about how people can access knowledge within their communities through their families, their public libraries, their private universities, and their workplaces. That use of knowledge is critical for what they do in their day-to-day, and in turn, similarly, for AI, to provide critical societal benefit. Similarly, on the movement of knowledge, the movement of data. A metaphor I've used is just as there's roads and bridges to facilitate the movement of goods and people, digital infrastructure is essential for the digital flow of goods, services, people, and data. The movement of knowledge can allow for fruitful collaboration and benefit to all of the world. Infrastructure around this is around collecting, digitizing, indexing, vectorizing knowledge, such that then that data can be represented into AI models. And if I take a quick double click into the use of knowledge, I would break that down and break down the assumptions that all data is the same, one, and all knowledge is data. And before diving in, we think about publicly accessible data on the internet through, we at OpenAI think about publicly accessible data on the internet, as well as data that's accessible through partnerships or private partnerships. And to note, we are excited about both. We've worked with both public and private companies around data partnerships to governments to help improve model performance and linguistic and cultural representation in our models. However, I will note that knowledge in all parts of the world varies and is often perhaps even beyond digital reach. And examples of this could entail oral traditions, tribal knowledge, cultural behaviors, and nuanced, undocumented text or behaviors that when people say, hey, you had to have been there, or you had to have grown up to understand that. That is knowledge that's undocumented, but valuable for AI. When we talk about machine accessible knowledge or data, this exists on a spectrum from wide range of sources and different degrees of accessibility, from, as I've noted previously, publicly accessible data, which is often on the internet, to private data, which ultimately has a number of various types, from platform powered to internal data to a company or a person. And in this conversation today, I'd note that on platform-powered data, it's information that's produced every day by individuals. There's a really great nonprofit, Karya, launched in 2021 in Bengaluru, that bills itself to be the world's first ethical data platform company. And an interesting thing that I think is valuable for all of us here today is that they help try to close the digital data divide by providing low resource language data to tech providers. And Karya does that by paying and giving de facto ownership of the data created to the workers that are capturing those languages in their communities. As a result, the UN could consider how to scale aggregation efforts in low resource communities such that that knowledge is transformed into data and in turn represented in models. On the movement of data or knowledge, as noted earlier, it can allow for fruitful collaboration and benefit. And as the UN and member states can consider how digital public infrastructure and investment can play into enabling this. One, digitization, aggregation, or vectorization data across all communities can create a foundation for model training. Infrastructure and processes for data access, i.e. cleaning of PII, removing certain specific aspects of data, can be a second step to how information is moving and being used. And then shared infrastructure that is interoperable globally through shared standards and can really support the societal benefit that we're all looking for and help achieve the UN SDGs. Finally, I'll note the international community could start exploring ways to build interoperable DPI that facilitates cross-border collaboration and is enabled and powered by AI. One, enhanced global governance. Two, standardization and harmonization. And then three, fostering multi-stakeholder engagement. On the first point of global governance, interoperable DPI can serve as a linchpin in the global governance of AI, facilitating seamless exchange of information, best practices, and regulatory frameworks across borders. On standardization and harmonization, by fostering standards of AI and technology and data protocols, interoperable DPI would reduce fragmentation, making AI more efficient and universally accessible to drive that benefit to all of humanity. And finally, fostering multi-stakeholder engagement. Encouraging broad participation in digital public infrastructure development, including from tech companies to governments to civil society, ensures diverse needs and perspectives are addressed. Continuing to drive public-private partnership is in our interest at OpenAI, and participation across a broad group of stakeholders will be the way that we effectively weave AI into our collective social fabric. And so I'll leave with one point as I speak to you all today, it is particularly of interest for us to drive and build AI that is benefiting all of humanity. But that starts at the earliest foundational levels of the development of the technology, which is data. And so as we look at weaving AI into our social fabrics, I would implore all of us to consider how do we ensure our cultures, our languages, our people, our humanity is represented as AI continues to develop and weave itself into our society. So thank you.
Thank you. I thank Mr. Bhatti for your very valuable insights. Before I turn to Mr. Dennis Norton, I think your presentation touched on some very important aspects, particularly for us in the Global South, the nexus of indigenous or traditional knowledge and intellectual property. It's a big issue that is being discussed at the World Intellectual Property. And I was wondering, maybe not on this forum, but as we walk out of this room, what your insights are on the role of AI or the challenges of AI in the protection of traditional knowledge and indigenous knowledge, particularly on genetic resources and in medicine, et cetera, when AI is encroaching in that area where there's an increasing concern from the Global South. And I thank you so much. Now, let me turn to our next panelist, Mr. Dennis Norton, the Chair, Working Group on Science and Technology, Interparliamentary Union. You have the floor, sir.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you for inviting me to present here this morning. I'm representing the Interparliamentary Union, which is a global organisation of national parliaments founded on the principle of dialogue in 1889. In 2021, we recognised the need to bridge the gap between science and Parliament by establishing the Working Group on Science and Technology, which I have the honour to chair. Our main objective is to support global legislative initiatives in science and technology, emphasising the ethical dimensions and striving to eliminate disparities that prevent universal access. Drawing on my experience as a Member of Parliament for 27 years and as Ireland's Digital Minister between 2016 and 2018, and serving on the Telecoms Council of the European Union, I grappled with a similar regulatory challenge to the one posed by AI today, and that was regulating social media and managing the downside risks associated with that technology. While the positive opportunities for innovation were far less then than with artificial intelligence today, there are a number of similarities that can help to provide a basis for a governance model. And I'm going to outline 5 particular points in relation to this. Firstly, there is often an excessive caution within government to taking action. This is traditionally because policy change was directly related to government spending. In my case, despite having the industry on board on the principle of regulation, there was still concern within government circles that this would cause a chilling effect on investment by social media companies in Ireland, which hosted most of the European headquarters. In my experience, one of the most effective ways to overcome excessive caution in government is to use evidence to inform policy. It gives ministers and MPs who have the decisions to make the confidence to press for a greater level of ambition from those that are drafting those policies. Our working group is helping to overcome this excessive caution with the development of a practical toolkit to support engagement between science and academia and Parliament. This not only impacts on decision makers today, but as many ministers cut their teeth in Parliament, it provides them with a skill that can be utilised in future governments. Secondly, we must consider the rate of technological change versus legislative change. It's like comparing a bicycle to a bullet train. Colleagues today who have started the legislative process on AI now realise that as their laws are passing through the parliamentary process, they're becoming obsolete. The conclusion that we've come to in Ireland with regulating social media was to set out a principle, guidance principle in legislation in tandem with the establishment of a powerful regulator to interpret these principles against the developments by social media companies. But the key question is, how do you devise a set of principles which will be all-encompassing? Our working group has drafted a charter on the ethics of science and technology, which is a framework of ethical principles that serve to guide decision-making, research and development, and ensure that science and technology are used for the well-being of humanity and environmental protection. This can help not only with regulating AI, but other technologies as well. The Charter also highlights the need to address global inequalities in accessing and benefiting from scientific and technological progress. Thirdly, there is a risk of a regulatory chilling effect on AI. Not just if one country goes it alone, which is the big fear of most, but even when there is acceptance on a standard. The EU's GDPR has now effectively become the global benchmark for personal data, but it's not without its problems. GDPR has become a barrier to data use, even when it will benefit citizens. For example, in healthcare, where a large pool of anonymised data of a particular patient cohort, such as cystic fibrosis patients, cannot be used to help develop an innovative treatment because consent was not obtained at the time that the original data was collected. This could be overcome through the use of data trusts or data cooperatives under a democratically granted mandate from Parliament, where the individual interests could be evaluated against the collective benefits and harms. Fourthly, accessibility of data is a crucial aspect, and we need to have a governance regime that facilitates efficient cross-border data flows while protecting privacy. Let me give you a practical example. Every year, there are between 5 and 7 million patents that lapse, or products that go off patent. However, there is no way of knowing what these technologies are. There is no unified system or no centralized database, and once they lapse, that's it. They evaporate into thin air. A lot of these very innovative ideas could easily be utilized in different parts of the world to address challenges, such as clean water. Another challenge is data format. Last week, I attended a presentation on an academic study into the persistent gender disparities in labour market participation and working conditions in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. The point was made that making comparisons in two jurisdictions on the island of Ireland with just 7 million people has become more difficult since Brexit in 2016, with data being compiled and presented in different formats. Finally, a big challenge is the actual availability of local data in the Global South and in marginalised communities. But it is possible to overcome this in some instances with a remote analysis backed up with minimal local data collection facilitated by the use of AI. For instance, the Innovation Cell in the UNDPPA is utilising a satellite tool. This tool is gathering crucial data from regions around the world that are most vulnerable to climate change, yet lack sufficient data, like essential water basins in Central Africa. The aim is to aid decision-making processes that are based on solid data. But taking this remote data and combining it with even minimal citizen science, that's on-the-ground measurements by the public, can significantly enhance the data and its potential broader application. So, while I provided you with some high-level challenges and more localised challenges, what we've done within our working group is taken these challenges from the abstract and apply them to a real-world problem for members of Parliament, namely water and sanitation, SDG 6. Through this, we've engaged with evidence-based policy by building relationships with science, technology and members of Parliament, identified existing data and practical solution-orientated resources, and flagged deficits and barriers, both regulatory and practical. thus acting as a template to address data flow barriers and its utilisation with decision makers. In conclusion, data governance is a complex issue that requires a multifaceted approach. It's not just about regulating the technology, but it's also about understanding the societal implications and ensuring that the benefits are shared equitably. As we move forward, we must continue to engage in dialogue, learn from each other, and work together to ensure that data and data-driven technologies are used responsibly and ethically for the benefit of all. Garamila Mahaguf, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Norton, for your valuable remark and insights. Let me now turn to our next panelist, Ms. Sana Karigani, Professor of Practice at King's College London. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, Your Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It's a great honour and pleasure to be with you today, especially to discuss the current state of data-enabled technologies and their future outlook in the context of data-driven development, and crucially, how we can work together to get this right. At the Responsible AI UK programme, our mission is to connect the UK's responsible AI research into leading research centres and institutions around the world, which will allow us to deliver world-leading best practices for how to design, evaluate, regulate, and operate AI systems in ways that benefit people, society, and the nation. But today, with all of your cooperation, we are talking about how to accomplish that same mission for the whole world. This topic is amorphous, and I very much value the report of the Secretary-General on data for development, which concisely touches on many important areas. With a maximum of 15 minutes, I'm going to try and stay within. I wanted to concentrate on one topic: trust. The absolute importance of fostering trust if we want a future that reaps the benefits of data for all of us while mitigating the risks. You can build trust in many ways. I'm going to talk about 3 mechanisms from the Secretary-General's report that highlight the work I've been doing throughout my career. By way of quick background, I started as a software engineer for big techs and startups, worked as a strategic advisor to global companies, and then spent time in policy making as the inaugural head of the UK government's Office for AI, where I led the development of the UK's national AI strategy and spearheaded the thinking behind the AI regulation white paper. As the Honourable Chair mentioned, I am now Professor of Practice in AI at King's College London and one of the executive leadership team of the Responsible AI UK programme. So the 3 mechanisms to foster trust that I'll cover today are: 1, getting regulation and governance right. Our citizens and our companies are asking for this. 2 is the vital role of skills and literacy. Our citizens need to have knowledge to enable their agency, cooperation, and adoption of these technologies. And 3, broadening out this conversation. Not only do we need to hear from industry luminaries, but also academics, policymakers, civil society, non-profit organizations, and crucially, representation and participation from all the countries of the world. Governance and regulation is a must. Our citizens and companies are asking for it. The Alan Turing Institute and the Ada Lovelace Institute conducted a nationally representative survey of public attitudes to artificial intelligence in Britain to find out how do people feel about AI. Of note, this survey was conducted just as ChatGPT was being released, so right before the generative AI hit the big screen and became the topic of many mainstream conversations. And even at that time, people wanted AI to be regulated. A few examples that I quote from the report: public attitudes suggested a need for regulation that involves redress and the ability to contest AI-powered decisions. people most commonly indicated that laws and regulations that prohibit certain uses of technologies and that guide the use of all AI technologies would increase their personal comfort with the uses of those AI. 62% were in favor of that. People were also largely supportive of clear procedures for appealing to a human against an AI decision. That was 59%. They also expressed concerns about data security and accountability, with 56% of the public wanting to make sure that personal information was kept safe and secure, and 54% wanting clear explanations and transparency into how the AI technologies were working. From the industry perspective, the Bank of England has also conducted a number of surveys on the use of machine learning in financial services. The findings there also demonstrate that clear and aligned sectoral AI regulation and standards is welcome and would not pose a constraint on machine learning development and deployment, but actually be supportive of it. The public and industry have complex and nuanced views about the uses of AI and data-driven technologies, depending on what these technologies are being used for and in what way. The Secretary General's report also states that our debates and policies need to go beyond general assumptions or a one-size-fits-all approach to meet the demands and expectations from the public and industry. We require a mixture of hard and soft mechanisms, where hard law refers to legally binding regulations that are enforceable through formal mechanisms, and soft law refers to non-binding guidelines, principles, and practices that influence behavior but are not legally enforceable. The difference between hard and soft law nicely sums up the approaches that have been taken by the European Union's AI Act and the UK's AI Regulation White Paper. At a very high level, the EU AI Act is taking a rules-based, horizontal approach with the promise of new legislation covering data governance and AI. The UK approach, on the other hand, is principles-based, vertical, or sector-specific in focus, and there are currently no new legislations being introduced. Both of these approaches are continuing to form and evolve, as is necessary in the current fast-paced development of these technologies. And as we are moving forward, they are also coming closer to each other. Both approaches are risk-based, with the level of risk providing the sliding scale that determines to what extent rules or principles apply. The UK has been signaling for a while that legislation might follow, as well as having set up a centralized function. And the EU has started to add some sector-specific guidance. As with everything, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. In fact, this morning, the Financial Times reported that the UK is beginning to craft new legislation to regulate artificial intelligence. The article continues to say that this legislation is likely to put limits on the production of large language models, for example. So that is in this morning's FT. International cooperation is at the heart of striking the right balance between hard and soft laws, allowing for interoperability through standards. At the inaugural AI Safety Summit, leaders from across the world came together to sign the Bletchley Park Agreement, committing to work together on the issues that are important to all of us. The right kinds of regulation enable innovation rather than stifle it. Regulation provides the guardrails that allow companies and startups to innovate. The second mechanism I'm going to speak about today to help build and foster trust is the vital role of skills and literacy. Our citizens need to have knowledge to enable their agency, cooperation, and adoption of these technologies. So Mr. Wadhwani talked about this earlier around the adoption being the key, ultimately. Governments must be proactive and supportive of data literacy among their people to allow their citizens to manage their digital footprint. Literacy and digital skills allow citizens to take informed decisions about how their data is being used and gives them agency over their personal information, so they don't just opt out of data collection and possibly exclude themselves from services. Citizens' understanding of the digital landscape allows them to be active participants in conversations about products and regulation, and most importantly, it drives adoption of data-driven technologies. Countries are starting to introduce digital skills and data literacy into the curriculum, and now universities are also starting to have a requirement of all their students to have a grounding in data-driven technologies, no matter the topic of study that they're pursuing at university. Skills and literacy also enables countries to benefit from the efficiencies and innovations of digital and data-driven technologies. Equipping citizens with these technologies, with these skills, alongside the appropriate investment into digital infrastructure, helps to maximize the benefits and potential of data-driven technologies. Public awareness, enhanced transparency, and accountability are crucial to strengthen public trust in AI. It allows people to better express their expectations and their fears when it comes to uses of these technologies, especially around potential loss of human judgment when bringing improvements to their lives, particularly around speed, efficiency, and accessibility. Equipping our citizens with skills not only brings them to the table, allowing for policymakers and developers to listen to public concerns and work towards solutions for alleviating those concerns, but also increases the benefits of these technologies, both economically and socially. Finally and briefly, I would like to touch on the importance of broadening out this conversation. Not only do we need to hear from industry luminaries from commercial perspective, but also from academics, policymakers, civil society, nonprofit organizations, and crucially, representation and participation from all the countries around the world. The Secretary General's paper also speaks about ensuring that our youth have a say, which I very much agree with. It is their future we are working to get right. We need to make sure that they are able to express what they hold dear and important for the future that we're creating together. Dame Wendy Hall, who is the Regis Professor of Computer Science at the University of Southampton, author of the UK's AI Review, advisor to global leaders, one of 31 experts from across the world to be appointed to the United Nations high-level advisory body on artificial intelligence, and her accolades go on and on. She's been quoted as saying, "If it is not diverse, it's not ethical." In this quote, she has been known to refer to many things, including ensuring more female representation when developing data-driven technologies, and she also continues to use the same quote in its absolute widest sense. Diversity has to come at every step, in every way, from policymaking and governance to design, development, deployment, and use of data-driven technologies. We have to ensure that perspectives are heard and expertise is gained from across disciplines and sectors, from across age groups and socio-demographic groups, from across the countries of the world. A friend and colleague of mine, Rachel Caldicott, who is the founder and executive director of Careful Industries' Promising Trouble, says that we need to make technology work for 8 billion people rather than 8 billionaires. This is a pithy way to get across an important point that is well stated in the Secretary General's paper. I quote, "The responsibility of upholding the balance between the ethical, policy, and economic business consideration falls on all stakeholders involved in the governance of data and digital technologies. This includes governments, which should enact and enforce laws that protect human rights in the digital realm, businesses, particularly technology companies, which need to ensure their practices are ethically aligned with human rights principles, and academia, civil society, youth, and technical communities, which play a crucial role in informing governance principles, advocating for, monitoring compliance with these principles." I will end by saying that for the Responsible AI program, we very carefully chose the term responsible because everybody opts in to responsibility, no matter what role you hold in society. To create a world we all want to be a part of that prospers from the benefits of data-driven technologies while minimizing the risk, the responsibility lies with each and every one of us. Thank you.
I thank Ms. Norton for your insightful remarks. Let me now, thank you so much. I thank Ms. Sana Krigani for your very insightful remarks. Now, let me now turn to Mr. Yi Xing, Founding Director of CAS International Research Center for AI Ethics and Governance, who will join us remotely. Video, please.
Thank you. I hope everyone could hear me well. It's really pity that I cannot join in person due to a conflict of the meeting that I'm actually talking on a flight from Beijing to Brazil. I hope the connection and also the technology can help us to stay connected. Otherwise, we need to improve the technology, even though we have digitalization and AI and interconnection. So my topic for today is capacity building of digitalization and AI for sustainable and shared future. Next slide. So I think AI now is actually a infrastructure for all the digitalization technologies that powers up everything that is related to the enablers for global sustainable development and also our common agenda. Not only related to data analysis, but also to bring computer interfacing, quantum technology, cloud computing, and also virtual realities. But next slide. But I will have to say that the current AI and digitalization are not really contributing to sustainable development goals in a good way. As you can see that all the scientific papers written in English on information and communication technology, there's only 2% of them that are directly related to sustainable development. And I would say AI did not get better. The papers related to AI for sustainable development, compared to all the AI papers, it's only 2.5% of them. And so it's a shame. It's a shame it's only 2% of the contribution that is directly contributing to the realization of SDGs. And among of these 2%, what is even horrible is that most of the efforts are only contributing to mostly two topics, that is AI for healthcare and AI for quality education. Of course, these two areas are very important, but I will have to say that there are the rest of the 15 pillars are actually very lack of attention because you cannot make quite a lot of money from these areas. And then the industry do not really care that much, mostly on these topics. So I think this is something that we have to change at the government level and by using the intergovernmental organizations like our platform to make a change. Next slide. So I wanted to give one of the examples here on that you cannot make a lot of money from it. Or on the other side, it's really essential for using the data technology to help us to understand the world. What you can see at the right side is based on big data analytics. We are showing by using a program that we developed called Symbiosis Panorama, which shows the relationship among human or the animal species and all the plants. And as you can see, they're highly connected in a nice way. Next slide. What I wanted to say here is that, as you can see, that from the left side, humans are well connected to many of the animal species, while on the other side, and also the plants, where on the other side, on the right side, that's the connection from ants to human and the other animal species and plants. But so as you can see, humans are very connected to the environment, but maybe the ants are not as fruitful as the human species. But when talking about numbers, if we have one human on the Earth, and then you have 1 million ants there. But talking about the connections from human to ants, that 99% of the data on the web shows that there are dozens of ways from human to eat ants, but not so much about the other relationships. But there's only one connection from a French neuroautonomist saying that the society were model, the ant society were models for human society. I think from which we can learn a lot. Next slide. When I was actually talking to different people, they've always been like, although we're very different, we're from very different cultures, we still wanted to be connected and collaborate. I also asked the question why we have to be very different. So what I wanted to do by using AI is really to connect cultures instead of disconnect people. So this is why we built the cultural interactions engine that try to use AI technology, natural language, especially natural language processing, generative AIs to connect all the UNESCO World Heritages, both cultural and natural, to show that when we apply for the cultural World Heritage from UNESCO, we've always been saying, oh, we're very unique from a specific perspective, and no one actually have that. It's only us. But when we connect all the World Heritages all together, it shows how they're connected, not only how they're this different from each other. One of the examples that I showed here is that maybe if you're from China, maybe you know the Peking man site at Zhoukoudian, but you never know also hominid sites from South Africa. But actually, they're very related back to the history of human. Next slide. Not only by using AI, you can show it can show how these different cultural heritages are connected to each other. But really, the generative AI can tell us a lot more than how they are similar to each other and how they differ from each other. When you have the connections from different cultures, actually, you will appreciate the differences in a way that these differences from the culture, from different cultures, actually help you to get a more comprehensive landscape of human cultures. So by that, I wanted to show how AI can help us to make more connections and to realize the similarities and differences among cultures and to appreciate this commonalities and differences. Next slide. Finally, I wanted to talk about capacity building. That now there are many underrepresented groups and underrepresented cultures all over the world. And when you wanted to, let's say for the different for the three languages from South Africa. If you wanted to create large language models by using their language, and you will find that there are not so much data that can be used to train the large language models. Even you have the capacity right there, you have the software and hardware built for them. Well, actually, you don't have the data that can realize, the technologies only for their cultures and languages. So I have to say, for capacity building, it has to be there from the sovereignty's perspective, not only the data of the AI infrastructure, but what is lacking on different cultures, but their data knowledge is actually something we have to change. If we don't really have that much data from these cultures, well, at least you need to use the data that you have to fine-tune the large language models. But for the cultures, I'm quite sure that the cultures cannot be captured all by these small amount of data. So you have to invite, culture experts to be involved to fine-tune the large language models in service of these different cultures. And they have to be paid much, I would say. You cannot use them only to tag data. That is not the only human contribution. What really counts is the cultural impact that can have to large language models to be adaptable to different cultural contexts and to different people all over the world. Next slide. I will have to say the current artificial intelligence system is only an information processing system that actually seems to be intelligent, but actually not. They make mistakes that humans never make in a very unexpected ways. So for frontier AI technologies, they still have very risky perspectives that we cannot predict. So I would like to say it is still a human society and an ecological world. Can be assisted by AI, but not driven by AI. We do not want AI everywhere. So I have to say responsible and steady development and proper use leads to AI for human and ecology good, both for the near term and for the long term. Remember the relationship of ants and human on the symbiosis panorama that I showed you, and we should have more reflexive thinking from a human-centric world to a ecology-centric world. Thank you very much.
I thank Mr. Yi Sang for his presentation. I must say that it has been quite an insightful and rich morning from different perspectives from our panelists, and we thank them dearly. Thank you so much. Now we turn to our guests under the special ministerial segment. I have the pleasure to invite Her Excellency Ms. Maria do Rosario Braganca Sambo, Minister of Higher Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation. You have the floor, ma'am.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to be here to represent Angola in this panel and share with you our concerns on data for development. Angola, with a population exceeding 30 million, shares a common challenge with many African nations: the pressing need to enhance technological systems, infrastructures, and corporate frameworks, and bolster investments in ICT, while also empowering the workforce to adapt to technological revolution experienced in other countries. Despite governments' efforts in investing in new technological infrastructures, Angola still lags behind in adopting new technologies. Diversifying the economy and substantially reducing poverty remain key challenges for the Angolan government, with a primary focus on elevating living standards and facilitating sustainable economic growth. Updating science, technology and innovation policy with an emphasis on new technologies could present an alternative model for Angola's economic diversification and fostering sustainable economic development. The existing ICT infrastructure and support personnel fall short, warranting a critical need to broaden and diversify funding for digital infrastructure in the immediate and long term. This includes improving reliable internet access and ensuring efficient data collection, storage, and transmission across the country. Among the objectives outlined in the National Development Plan 2023 to 2027, there is an emphasis on positioning higher education and research and development institutions at the level of international standards. This involves supplying appropriate infrastructure to foster an enriching environment for education and learning, as well as the development of scientific research, technology transfer, and innovation. In this context, we are promoting ICT programs in higher education institutions to bolster the number of graduates in this field, foster research in cyber physical systems and advanced computing and communication technologies, including machine learning, big data, intelligent systems, cybersecurity, and robotics. An essential initiative is the creation and operation of master's and doctoral courses in artificial intelligence, integrating specialized studies in computer science. Recognizing the relevance of ICT, the Angolan government has passed the laws and regulations such as the Personal Data Protection Law and the establishment of the National Data Protection Agency, a public entity tasked with managing and setting guidelines for the processing of personal data with the aim of upholding public freedom and fundamental rights. To further this objective, actions are being carried out to progressively and sustainably enhance the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem with a specific focus on the data and technology sector. The government aims to foster collaboration between academia and industry and establish incubators to boost entrepreneurship within academia, transform research into tangible products, and drive the establishment of startups. Nonetheless, for these actions to be successful and sustainable, it is essential to establish partnerships and collaborate with development agencies and international organizations for accessing specialized knowledge, technological resources, and best practice in data and technology management that promote sustainable development. Angola has benefited greatly from partnerships in the adoption of ICT. A range of partnerships with international organizations, firms, and governments is underway in several sectors of the domestic market, including collaboration with the United Nations, the European Union, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, the United States Agency for International Development, and leading firms in the banking sector. Angola plays an active role in international dialogues, forums, and conferences focused on data governance and global collaboration, aligning with established international standards and frameworks for data governance developed by organizations such as the International Organization for Standardization, UNESCO, and the World Bank. Finally, I would like to reinforce that leveraging the potential of data and new technologies, Angola can drive innovation and entrepreneurship, enhance decision-making processes, and ultimately contribute to the increased well-being and prosperity of its citizens. And I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Now I give the floor to His Excellency, or Her Excellency, Ms. Divika Vidot, Minister of Investment, Entrepreneurship and Industry of Seychelles. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Head of Secretariat, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to you all. I'm honored to be here in person and to be able to talk about data for development and to share the ongoing progress of Seychelles in that regard, especially in this era where economies and societies are increasingly intertwined with technology. In line with our country's commitment to digital transformation, as published in our National Development Strategy 2024 to 2028, data is valued not only as an economic asset, but also as a catalyst for transformative change. It serves as the cornerstone of digital transformation, empowering us to make informed policy decisions, optimize service delivery, and enhance citizen engagement. The government deems data crucial for informed policy decision-making. I'll share with you one specific example of a project which we embarked on 2 years ago together with UNCTAD that currently serves as a very important tool in our decision-making process. In July 2023, Seychelles, with the support of UNCTAD, successfully launched what we call the SDG Investor Map, which serves as a marketing platform that is aimed at attracting investment to specific opportunity areas and which are equally aligned with the attainment of our SDGs. The map is hosted virtually and accessible to the public at large, but what is important to note is that the methodology that was employed to formulate the SDG Investor Map was very much largely data-driven and structured to ensure an approach that allowed the collection of data via public-private partnerships and made it easier and will continue to make it easier to formulate decisions relating to investment opportunity areas and monitor their direct impact on the attainment of Seychelles' SDGs. The government is also actively engaged in a number of initiatives that are aimed at centralizing data, and these include establishing an electronic government network. We're focused on connecting all government departments to the electronic government network, which will enable secure integration of information systems across government. This network will not only link the government department headquarters, but also extend to the community-level administration offices to ensure seamless communication and coordination between our departments. This will allow us to access high-quality data and allow the government departments to take accurate, timely, and relevant decisions in the best interest of the citizens. We're also working on establishing our government e-service portal. We're committed to making government services available virtually through the development of a centralized service portal. The portal will serve as a virtual one-stop destination for accessing a wide range of government services to enhance convenience and efficiency for businesses and for members of the public. As part of this effort, government officers will have access to relevant information relating to to our citizens, which will be available on one central system, of course, with different levels of access. The sharing of data will help in easing the access to government services and to meet the expectations and needs of our people. Of course, in line with these digitalization plans, particular emphasis is being placed on data protection. Seychelles has enacted the Data Protection Act, which will regulate the handling of personal data by data subjects, data processors, and data controllers. The Information Commission, which is an independent body prescribed under our Constitution, is tasked with enforcing this legislation, thereby safeguarding the private citizens' rights and privacy in the digital realm. Let's not forget cybersecurity. In light of increasing digitalization efforts, cybersecurity has become paramount concern globally, including Seychelles. To address this, Seychelles has established a national cybersecurity policy and strategy to mitigate risks and protect critical infrastructure. The Department of Information, Communication and Technology is actively involved in maintaining robust cybersecurity controls across government networks. Additionally, Seychelles has in place the relevant legislation, such as the Cybercrime and Related Crimes Act, which is enforced by the Seychelles Police to combat cyber threats effectively. As with any other initiatives, the challenges are many. Artificial intelligence and its application being one, whilst there is no existing national legal framework specifically dedicated to governing artificial intelligence adoption. AI technologies are currently being utilized across various sectors. The Department of ICT of Government is leveraging on AI to streamline certain tasks, particularly in areas where expertise may be lacking, thereby increasing efficiency. However, we are still working through the proper legislative framework to govern the application of AI. Certainly, the most significant challenge is the amount of investment that is needed to finance and support the rollout of our plans. Being classified as a high-income country based on our GDP per capita, Seychelles' population is only 100,000. It's a very small population. And being classified as high income makes it difficult for us to gain access to concessionary financing to support our digitalization plans. The infrastructure needed for digital transformation and leveraging data for development includes robust cloud computing servers, data storage facilities, secure networks, and software licenses. Additional investment in cybersecurity measures is also crucial to protect sensitive data. Without these essential components, it becomes challenging to effectively collect, analyze, and utilize data for development purposes. But through these concerted efforts, Seychelles is laying the groundwork for a digital future where e-commerce, online government services play a central role in driving economic growth, fostering innovation, and improving the lives of all Seychellois. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your statement. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Leah Buendia, Undersecretary for Research and Development of the Department of Science and Technology for the Republic of Philippines. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chair. Excellencies, as the Secretary General's report states, data serve as a crucial decision-making tool, aiding in achieving economic, social, and environmental objectives and advancing sustainable development goals. The Philippines, through the Department of Science and Technology, believes that data, when properly managed, can be a powerful instrument to address pressing global issues, especially in disasters, climate change, health, and environment. The Philippines has been maximizing the application of data in disaster risk reduction and management through a government-led multi-agency initiative called GeoRisk Philippines. It is an integrated platform that serves as a central resource of information on natural hazards and risk assessment. It can generate indicative hazard assessment assessment reports on user-specified location. This also led to the creation of the PlanSmart ready-to-build web application, an automated planning tool that can systematically generate a rehabilitation and recovery plan using calculation tools and producing consolidated results. The country also uses data to reduce climate risks by providing agricultural stakeholders with site-specific crop advisories. The Philippines also innovated and developed an RX box, a telemedical device that transmits vital signs data to specialists who analyze the patient's status remotely, which is useful most especially in rural health units in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas in the Philippines. Lastly, we use data satellite for environment to also assess the air quality, pollution, and other geographical observations. Excellencies, we cannot stress more how much we can all benefit from data and its applications. However, we must also be aware of the possible adverse impact this can create, such as in widening the gap within and among countries of different economic capacities. This heightens the call for addressing digital divide, promoting inclusivity, and ensuring connectivity. Globally accepted framework, reliable infrastructure, and fair and just regulations and standards must be put in place, most especially in consideration of developing countries. We must all share the advantages of data. In designing the frameworks and policies, all sectors must be included in consultations and working groups as they provide valuable inputs, which would also be significant in the implementation stage. International policy discussions on cybercrime convention and the ethics of AI should also be considered to ensure data privacy and security. In addition, to be able to further unleash the full potential of data and data-enabled technologies for societal benefit, countries should work together, benchmarking on best practices, learning from the lessons of one another, and seizing opportunities for partnerships would create an enabling environment and ecosystem for everyone to benefit from this innovative leap while considering risks. The CSTD plays a significant role in providing an avenue for the member states and other stakeholders to come together, exchange ideas and information, and initiate joint activities that would ensure that data would create solutions for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Undersecretary for Research and Development for Philippines. Now I give the floor to Mr. Mukhtar Dabo, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Technical, Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology of the Gambia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to address this esteemed gathering to discuss the critical role of data-enabled technologies in driving sustainable development, particularly in the context of developing countries like the Gambia. Data is often compared to oil due to its economic value and transformative potential. Like oil, data can fuel innovation and drive economic growth, but its exploitation must be managed carefully to avoid negative impacts. Developing countries face challenges in harnessing the benefits of data, such as limited infrastructure and skills. To fully leverage data's potential, countries must invest in digital infrastructure, build capacity in data analysis, and establish strong data protection laws. Inclusive data practices are essential for ensuring that marginalized groups benefit from data-driven development. This involves engaging communities in the data collection process, adapting tools to local context, and disaggregating data to capture diverse perspectives. Addressing bias in data collection and analysis is also crucial for achieving equitable outcomes in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Developing international standards for data governance is vital for facilitating cross-border collaboration on global challenges. This requires collaboration among countries, international organizations, and stakeholders to develop flexible standards that reflect diverse needs and contexts. Standards should be based on principles of transparency, accountability, and inclusivity to ensure that all stakeholders have a voice in the process. Monitoring and enforcement mechanisms are essential for ensuring compliance with international standards. Capacity building and technical assistance can help countries implement these standards effectively. By investing in infrastructure, building capacity, and establishing international standards, countries can harness the power of data to drive sustainable development and achieve the SDGs. UNCTAD and related UN agencies can play a crucial role in ensuring that developing countries reap the benefits of data. Firstly, they can provide technical assistance and capacity building programs to help these nations build the necessary skills and expertise for effective data collection, processing, and analysis. Secondly, these agencies can offer policy advice and guidance to help developing countries develop robust data protection laws, provide cybersecurity measures, and regulatory frameworks for data governance. Thirdly, they can facilitate partnerships between developing countries, international organizations, and the private sector to promote the responsible and ethical use of data and foster innovation. Additionally, UNCTAD and related UN agencies can play a role in promoting best practices by sharing lessons learned from other countries and regions to help developing countries implement effective data strategies. They can also advocate for the importance of data-driven development and the benefits it can bring to developing countries at the international level. Finally, these agencies can conduct research and analysis on the impact of data on development and share their findings with developing countries to inform their policies and strategies. In conclusion, data has the potential to drive sustainable development and help to achieve the SDGs, but realizing this potential requires concerted efforts to overcome challenges and develop robust governance frameworks. By investing in infrastructure, building capacity, and establishing international standards, countries can harness the power of data for the benefit of all. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Dabo, for your intervention. That was the last speaker on my ministerial segment. This concludes. Is here, okay. Oops, I remain corrected. We have the Minister of Algeria. You have the floor, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to all our panelists for the very insightful presentation. And now it's very hard to be the last one to talk before lunch, so I will be very quick. I wanted to add some quick comments on the really insightful and brilliant presentation we had the opportunity to hear this morning regarding data and what's happening in Algeria to to better understand the importance of this data transformation and all the policies that have been implemented, especially for the private sector. So the first comment I wanted to add is that in a knowledge-based economy, data is, of course, a very important asset, and every company is a data company. We are witnessing the so-called data transformation, especially in the private sector. What we notice is that the governments are, of course, resistant to change, and that data transformation could really be a very important game changer when it comes to putting in place public policies, and that we, as government, should invest more in data analysis. We have some very interesting experiences we led in Algeria in using data for a more accurate and smart public policies. Very recently, we used, for example, AI to better understand the high non-performing loans of a public agency, and it helps the government to better target the population of this agency and to reduce in a very significant way the non-performing loans of this agency. So as governments, as ministries, we should also make better use of the capabilities that data science and AI are offering today. The second comment is data availability and open data, as mentioned by some panelists this morning. Building robust and efficient models is very important, but the cost of building data sets is very high for most of our developing countries' startups. So we should also provide assistance and support and also making data more accessible for startups. And I think it can benefit for both the public and the private sector. We have a very interesting experience in Algeria. We, with the help of a startup, we could use the satellite images to predict the urban development of our cities, which, of course, is, as you know, a very important and strategic aspect of governance. And this is thanks to AI and to providing data for these startups. The third comment is also the GPU power. So currently, we are witnessing a race to acquiring more GPU power, and I feel like the developing countries are somehow out of the race. So we should raise awareness of building strong GPU power infrastructure in all our developing countries and the importance of investing in such infrastructure. The fifth comment is, as some of the panelists mentioned this morning, is over-regulation. So as regulators, we often like to regulate everything, and what we noticed is that innovation mostly suffered from regulation, and sometimes the best thing to do is not to regulate, but to deregulate or to remove some regulation, because I believe that in most of the countries, in the developing countries, regulation is we have most of the time much more regulation that we currently need. In developing countries like Algeria, we suffer from the so-called brain drain, and talent is very important to build a healthy startup ecosystem. In Algeria, we are leading a couple of initiatives for the South-South cooperation on this issue of brain drain, because we believe that we cannot talk about sustainable development, the technology startup development, without addressing this issue of brain drain, and the fact that we are currently facing a brain drain in areas where we need skilled engineers, especially in data scientists. And the last point I wanted to add is that, of course, AI and generative AI is replacing jobs. We have seen this with ChatGPT, and Goldman Sachs is predicting that in the next 5 years, AI will replace as much as 300 million employees around the world. But AI is also creating new jobs. We have seen this in India, for example, with a huge number of people working in, for example, data labeling. So AI is also creating a lot of opportunities for our countries and is reshaping the labor market. And we should also consider doing the right reforms when it comes to training. For example, in Algeria, 2 years ago, we launched a higher school of artificial intelligence targeting our top students to build in the next few years a new generation of course, engineers, computer scientists, data scientists that will lead this data transformation both in the public and the private sector. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Yassin El-Mahdi Walid, Minister of Knowledge Economy, Startups and Microenterprise of Algeria. Thank you for your insights. Now, that was the last speaker on the list of ministerial segment. This concludes the special ministerial segment. We have two discussants with us, and I would like to invite them to take the floor, starting with Ms. Sophia Huya, member of the Gender Advisory Board of the CSTD. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Me? Is my mic working? Yes? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Speaking on behalf of the Gender Advisory Board, I'd like to take us back to the very early days of the Gender Advisory Board in 1995, when it did a review of gender and global science policy and science and technology for development. And it found then that science and technology design and development has been, and it still is to a great extent, characterized by a lack of attention to women's priorities and activities, as well as a lack of lack of analysis of gendered impacts of science and technology. And so I'd like to kind of raise this issue in particular now in relation to digital technologies and artificial intelligence. To take a step back, if we're talking just in terms of access to basic mobile phones, not even smartphones, we see that there is still a digital gap. It is decreasing, but continues to be extremely significant for much of the population, or significant portions of the population in the global south, particularly in rural areas, but also particularly among women in relation to men. So we find then that women will not be contributing to data for development and will not be developing or contributing to the compilable data that AI is built on. And I really appreciate the calls for diversity and inclusion that we've heard so far today, but this is not going to happen until some of these really serious and significant infrastructural, educational, access to technology, access to income to pay for even smartphone time or internet access. Unless these issues and barriers are resolved, this AI will remain non-diverse and non-inclusive. And in fact, AI and digital data for development could pose the threat of reversing trends for equality, inclusion, and increased regional representation and development, or people in regions, by emphasizing the perspectives, interests, and situations of younger males who are predominant on the internet and still predominantly white men. For example, research in the US found that, research in the UK found that 15%, less than 15% of Wikipedia editors are female. Most of them are white or from Brazil or China. The majority are from Europe and the US. Research on digital recognition software has kind of followed this trend, where you see that it often in the US had trouble or has trouble identifying Black men, and even more trouble in identifying Black men. So it can identify white men very, very well. It can identify white women to a lesser extent, but it identifies different races very poorly. And so we've all heard as well about job searches on the internet, which advantage certain groups. And so I think we really need to keep this in mind as AI programs are built and AI applications are developed. I posed a couple of questions on ChatGPT recently, so I'm not, don't mean to be picking on ChatGPT, but I posed a couple that illustrate this. One question I asked was, who is the most famous woman in the world? And the answer, that ChatGPT returned 5 names. I won't give them out. 3 of them were women in the US. 1 of them was a woman in the UK. And the 5th one, the last one, was Malala Yousaf from Pakistan. So I think that gives you a really clear picture of where the focus is. I asked another question about the role of women in food security in the global south. And the answer I got was quite high level in terms of being fairly general, simplistic, and clearly, from my experience, derived from FAO web pages. So I think that we really still need to be aware that the diversity and the gender gap in digital data for development is still very, very significant. But there are some solutions. I also work with the CGIAR to build on some of the discussions, the presentation yesterday. There are some really excellent solutions being developed there. One of the solutions I'm involved in is integrating gender and social inclusion into what we're calling ag data hubs, which are data platforms for national meteorological agencies and extension agencies to pull together different kinds of data on weather as well as agricultural practices and package them in ways that farmers can use to be aware of weather patterns and the effects on their production, as well as to maximize and improve their production. In terms of gender and social inclusion, we're finding that this can be integrated in terms of the type of data that is selected, i.e., are you providing data on women's crops or men's crops? Are you providing data on when crops should be planted? And if that's the case, are you taking into account the different types of crops grown by women and men and youth? If you're providing information on livestock, for example, in Senegal, the information on livestock tends to be about cattle prices, but what kind of information is being presented on the livestock that women are in charge of, which are poultry and goats, as well as their dairy production activities. So if ag data hubs and data systems and platforms can be oriented to take some of these differences in quantitative inputs into account, as well as understanding better ways to reach women and youth and underserved groups through, for example, radio, television, mobile phone, voice calls even. So I think we need to recognize that while AI and digital pose a lot of potential, in much of the world, they're still really not relevant for the lives of people on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sophia Huya. Now I give the floor to Mr. George Boateng, co-founder of Kwame.ai and postdoctoral researcher at ETH Zurich. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here to share my input. I'm an academic and a social entrepreneur. I was born and raised in Ghana, and I'm on a mission to leverage AI for impact. I'm a postdoctoral researcher and lecturer at ETH Zurich here in Switzerland, where I teach a course called AI for Impact, which basically teaches students the fundamentals of machine learning and basically gets them to build AI systems to address social impact challenges in the SDGs. I'm also the co-founder and CEO of Kwame.ai, an AI startup that is basically building AI assistants to empower learners and knowledge workers like educators to improve their outcomes and productivity with a focus on the African continent. My intervention will focus on SDG 4, quality education, given the work of my startup. I'll touch on some of our work, challenges in the area, and potential opportunities, which would actually build upon some of the points that have already been mentioned here. So Kwame.ai has a number of social impact products. So one, Sua Code, is an AI-powered smartphone app that enables young Africans learn coding and AI skills in English and French on their smartphones, which is more accessible to young Africans than computers. Kwame.ai is an AI-powered web app that enables students across West Africa to ask questions related to the science curriculum and then get answers grounded in local knowledge. And finally, Brilla AI is an AI that transcribes African accented speech of scientific questions, generates an answer, and then says it out with an African accent. Recent advances in AI, exemplified by generative AI models like ChatGPT, have showcased their potential to revolutionize education globally. Major players in the global edtech landscape, such as Duolingo, Khan Academy, have actively integrated these AI advances into their platforms to enhance learning experiences. However, the deployment and evaluation of these AI systems predominantly occur within the context of Western educational settings, with limited attention directed towards the unique needs and challenges faced by students in the global South, like in Africa. One of the critical challenges facing the development and deployment of these AI tools is the pervasive lack of representative data, particularly from regions in the global South, in these foundational models. These result in biased AI systems that do not work well in the African context. For example, the release of GPT-4 in March 2023 featured various academic exams as benchmarks, but none from Africa. Other examples include speech-to-text systems that do not work well for African accents, or text-to-speech systems that do not speak with an African accent. This is just not right. If such AI systems are integrated into an AI tutor for African students, as an example, they would not work well, defeating the goal of such an AI tutor. These oversights underscore the tendency for the African continent to be marginalized in the application of cutting-edge AI advancements with little consideration given to the diverse educational landscapes and requirements of African students. The absence of diverse and inclusive data sets undermines the effectiveness and fairness of AI technologies, leading to biased outcomes that fail to adequately address the needs and realities of communities in these regions. As a consequence, the potential of AI to address the educational inequities and barriers prevalent in Africa remains largely untapped, highlighting the urgent need for greater inclusivity and tailored solutions that account for the specific needs and challenges faced by students on the continent. Fortunately, grassroots organizations like Masikeni and Ghana NLP, which have been crowdsourcing data for African languages and building AI technologies that can understand different languages, serve as good examples. My startup's open source project, Brilla AI, is creating data and building AI for science education. These, like I mentioned, are really good examples that can be followed in other regions in the global South. Such initiatives, however, need financial investment to adequately pay and compensate folks that contribute to these data collection efforts, and also an enabling regulatory environment from local governments to be able to access and make use of relevant data. So just to end, my startup, Kwame AI, is quite bullish on the potential of AI to transform education across Africa and enable equitable, accessible, high-quality education for millions of students. It is this reason that we have been leveraging resources that are more accessible, like smartphones, training machine learning models with local content, and building various AI-powered educational apps for the African continent since 2020, long before a lot of AI assistants became popular. We are building a world where a student in a rural part of, say, Ghana, can do a toll-free call with a non-smartphone and ask our AI science questions, for example, in a local language like Chi, and then our AI will generate an answer, provide explanations using local examples, and then say it out in a local language. Such a context where students can access such a learning interaction will lead to the democratization of education across the African continent. And that is the kind of future that we are trying to shape. Thank you.
I see Pakistan. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, data is a critical asset with the undeniable potential to help resolve pressing societal, environmental, and economic issues. With the immensity of modern global challenges, it is essential that while pursuing the promotion of prosperity, member states jointly leverage data to address global developmental challenges such as climate change and pandemics. Harnessing the true potential of data requires overcoming data fragmentation in a manner that benefits national developmental priorities while also facilitating gains from cross-border data sharing opportunities. Conversely, negligent handling of data and data flows can contribute to adverse de-development outcomes and exacerbate inequality. The rising proclivity for viewing data as merely a business asset with profit-making purposes also requires considerable reassessment. Data must also be viewed as a public good which is to be used for common benefit and social development. Mr. Chair, my delegation would like to highlight some key measures in leveraging data for global development. First, the development of a robust, inclusive, development-oriented, and equitable global data governance framework for cross-border data sharing whilst preserving data sovereignty is essential to successfully combating global development challenges. To this end, my delegation supports an inclusive member state-led and member state-driven approach to developing interoperable global standards in global data governance. Second, bridging the digital divide requires considerable flow of adequate financing for the development of infrastructural and technical capabilities. It is essential that the international financial architecture is reformed in a manner that expands the fiscal space for global South economies to invest in data literacy, analytical skills, technical expertise, and digital infrastructure development. Thirdly, open access to reliable data is essential to support evidence-informed policymaking. For governments to improve the quality and reliability of information extrapolated from data, technical assistance and capacity building programs are needed to improve statistical systems, crucial for tracking the SDGs and targeted interventions. Fourth, balanced cross-border data flows with protections against misuse and widespread availability of open source online communities and softwares.
Thank you.
Microphone.
Can you use your microphone for your last statement? Your microphone seems to be off.
Is it functioning now?
As it is.
Thank you. For balanced cross-border data flows with protections against misuse and widespread availability of open source online communities and softwares allow for learning by doing and building of local expertise in the global South. Encouraged by this, Pakistan has become one of the fastest growing mobile app markets in the world. This is a critical process in knowledge sharing, fostering innovation, and promoting entrepreneurship, which needs broader support and recognition. Finally, the rapid development of AI as a data-dependent technology with deeply transformative effects at the global level makes it even more critical to develop adequate norms and ethics of usage surrounding emerging technologies. People-centric and inclusive data governance requires global collaboration at multiple levels, including investing in infrastructure, promoting digital literacy, and empowering Global South voices in global data policy making. My delegation remains ready to support a holistic and inclusive dialogue on the fundamental principles of global data governance under the auspices of the CSTD and relevant UN fora. I thank you.
Thank you, Pakistan. Kindly, when you take the floor, please contain your statements between 3 to 5 minutes. We have a long list of speakers. Now I give the floor to Belarus. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, allow me to express gratitude to the speakers for their interesting and very contentful presentations. The focus is on data for development, and we note its importance. The question of generating data and using it is inseparable from digital technology and development, but it does have its own pros and cons. The pros involve the scientific basis for decision-making and assessment. The cons, the unequal access to data and the unequal use of it, which may generate discrimination. And this leads to the question as to the fair and effective use of data both at the national and global level. If this can be achieved, it will be possible to ensure the proper data-driven use of resources for sustainable development. I would like to turn briefly to our national approach to this. We are clear as to the value of data in developing the digital and knowledge-based economy. This is key to our state. The National Statistics Committee of Belarus is the main national body for the gathering and use of data and acts to coordinate and monitor the achievement of the SDGs. Under the auspices of the committee, we have had in place the National Platform for Data Accountability and Sustainable Development, as well as regional reporting platforms. This effective monitoring of the indicators and the SDGs in the country enables us not only to assess progress, but also to look at problems and work out how to design them as part of our national strategic document. In addition, the state is undertaking a series of areas of work to educate the population, particularly younger people, in terms of data literacy. Turning now to the global level. The core problem that exists is that certain global platforms associated with certain countries have a dominant position in the generation and use of data across the world. This position is potentially harmful to other countries, particularly developing countries, who are maybe denied the ability to effectively use data. And this means that it is increasingly difficult to ensure fair use of data globally. Data is very much part of state sovereignty. That said, science needs to be used as a catalyst for development, and it is important that states are able to steer that in the right direction. We consider that this should be part of a broader global context on the use of data. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Belarus, for your insightful intervention. Now I give the floor to Romania. Romania, you have the floor.
Hello. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrei Alexandru. I am State Secretary at the Romania Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization. In the current rapid technological changes, with great impact on every area of our lives, data is essential in generating economic growth through the development of millions of jobs, but also through the promotion of innovation and progress at the global level. The European Union data strategy promotes the development of a society empowered by data to make better decisions in businesses and in the public sector. All European citizens and businesses should benefit from the new technologies and the use of data. Romania also believes that there is a great potential of digital technologies to develop better outcomes for better lives, and we must harness this to achieve a positive change for all. There is a high-level commitment to sustain the digital transformation of Romania as part of a new model of economic development and well-being of society, and also to sustain the research and innovation, since they are the main engines of our economy. Thus, we aim to create a safe and fair digital space based on improved connectivity and access to high-quality, secure digital public services for all, and to assure major investments in the research infrastructure, human resource, data centers, and data research. Our strategic objectives include digitally skilled population and labor force, digital and safe public services, digital infrastructure, digitalization of businesses, modern and safe research infrastructure and data centers, cybersecurity, adoption of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and quantum technologies, all the part of quantum technologies such as sensors, quantum communication, quantum computing, and quantum safe. Also sustaining the research and innovation that are associated with the main societal challenges, yet the research that is able to solve concrete problems of the society by using modern technologies. Regarding digital public services, the main investments are the governmental cloud, which is a fundamental project in Romania's digital transformation, bringing together public services in a secure and consolidated IT architecture, the national interoperability platform, facilitating the exchange of data among public authorities and implementing the once only principle, and the raw EID, digital identity for a single on authentication. These measures set the ground for a profound digital transformation of the public sector and can lead to integration and interoperability of services, uniformity and accessibility of data sets for digital use, the enhanced management and security of information, improved cooperation of state institutions and citizens, and to better management of policies in support of societal welfare and environment protection. Finally, an open data national strategy under the coordination of the government and open access to research data under the coordination of our ministry are also on the Romanian research agenda. Thank you very much.
As we're taking the floor for the first time this week, I would like to thank you very much for a well-organized 27th CSTD session so far and a very interesting conversation this morning. We've spoken a lot about AI today, but Switzerland would like to share a few thoughts on data governance and more specifically on digital self-determination, as it's essential to have high-quality data if we want performing AI. Switzerland has been putting forward the concept of digital self-determination when governing data. As its foundation, it's the idea that individuals, companies, and society as a whole should be able to determine what actions they take in our digital ecosystem. This includes giving these actors the ability to determine the relevance and value of the data that is important to them, and to have access to and control over this data. By improving the level of control that individuals and organizations have over their own data, we can increase the trust in our data-driven societies and raise the willingness to share and make use of this data. Increased data sharing, as we all know, between different actors will increase access and then growth opportunities for various players of different sectors. Switzerland, in this sense, has developed a code of conduct for trustworthy data spaces published in December 2023. This code serves as a recommendation or as a guide for stakeholders from the private sector, academia, or civil society, who are all invited to sign it, by the way. This code concretizes the design of trustworthy data spaces on the principle of four key. So it is transparency, control, fairness, and efficiency. Out of these four principles, we have set out practical recommendations and then corresponding possible implementation measures. Society as a whole would benefit from the efficiency gains and the innovative potential brought by more data exchange. We therefore view digital self-determination as a long-term goal. And I will now let Stefan Verhulst, the co-founder and chief researcher and development officer and director of the data program of Governance Laboratory at New York University, share a few words on his fascinating project.
Thanks so much for this kind introduction. I will be very brief. From my point of view, the real value of digital data resides in its potential to reuse for other purposes. As was mentioned this morning by Mr. Norton, if we are smart about how we reuse data, we can advance health and medical science. As was referred by Mr. Wadhwani, if we are smart about how we reuse data, we can advance education in a much more smarter and targeted way. And as was mentioned by Mr. Bhatti, if we are smart and responsible in how we manage data, we can reuse it for instance, fine-tuning indeed foundational models in a way that aligns with expectations of society as well. Unfortunately, having worked on data governance for the last 30 years, most data governance regimes, as we currently know it, don't readily facilitate reuse. We really need to solve how we go about reusing data in a way that is responsible, in a way that is systematic and can serve, for instance, development goals as well. That means that we really have to start thinking about new principles that go beyond consent. While consent is a fundamental principle, it is unfortunately limited quite often to reusing data for the purpose for which it was collected. And that's why we are super excited to work with the Swiss government, specifically with the International Law Department and also with the Swiss Office of Communication to really advance digital self-determination. Because from our point of view, digital self-determination also allows to empower individuals and communities. As Professor Karigani was also referring to the need for participatory engagement, it allows for empowering communities and individuals to decide how the data is being used, but also in a way that actually facilitate reuse in a much more smarter and faster way as well. Now, this will require a concerted effort by all actors involved, and that's why we are delighted to be here and hope that the CSTD and its delegates and also its excellencies can also take note of how to advance and operationalize digital self-determination. Thank you very much.
I want to remind you, thank you very much for that intervention. I want to remind you that we have limited time, so if you can contain your intervention between 3 to 5 minutes, we will appreciate it. Now I give the floor to the Russian Federation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. At the outset, I would like to congratulate you on your appointment as Deputy Chair of the CSTD and thank our distinguished panelists for their comprehensive and interesting presentations. We would like to make a general remark with regard to the Secretariat's initiative on the establishment of a data exchange group. I would like to note that in establishing a new group, it's important not to overlook and miss out on the accumulated experience of other existing processes and international organizations. International Geneva contains within it a unique corpus of work from the specialized agencies, along with other interested parties, including various bodies active in the digital agenda. We heard a very interesting presentation from the former director of CEN yesterday in terms of the establishment of a global data exchange system. We have with us colleagues from ITU, with the standardization sector, which really is a crucial segment of the organization which is responsible for generating quality data, as we have heard about today from colleagues. With this in mind, we consider that this experience and also the experience from other organizations must be used. This is important when it comes to organizing the work of this potential group on data exchange. But again, as we have heard from a number of states, it's important to bear in mind the expectations and needs voiced by national governments in preparing for this work. And turning to the ethical side of things, as we see it, there is a need to base ourselves on the experience of those organizations that have shown their effectiveness in international partnership on the basis of mutual respect and equality. when it comes to involvement of all interested parties. That is all I had to say at this time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, the Russian Federation. Now I give the floor to the United States of America. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and to the panelists for their very insightful remarks. Today, both scientific demands and societal challenges require coordination and collaboration in areas of big data systems and the use of data to achieve desired outcomes, including better disease prevention, pandemic preparedness, and synergizing global effects to expand access to scientific knowledge. The United States understands that some of the biggest challenges of our time cannot be solved in isolation. As interconnectedness and interdependencies increase, international consensus is critical for establishing global norms in the use of data for artificial intelligence, biotechnology, medicine, quantum technologies, and space technologies. An example in this area is one of climate change. The United States is one of more than 100 national governments working to create a global Earth observation system of systems, or GEOS, which integrates observational systems and shares data by connecting existing research and development infrastructures using common standards. There are over 400 million open data resources in GEOS for more than 150 national, regional, international organizations and the commercial sector. Furthermore, progress in space, air, water, and ground systems has facilitated data collection in previously inaccessible areas. Likewise, the proliferation of low-cost sensors, citizen science initiatives, and the Internet of Things grows data exponentially and amplifies the challenges associated with establishing secure, discoverable, interoperable, and reusable open data digital domains. Utilizing data for development presents challenges in ensuring adherence to data standards, integrity, privacy, quality, and accessibility, alongside the necessity for robust methods of integrating and validating data from diverse sources. Sustained enhancements in cyber infrastructure, encompassing data repositories, networks, high-performance computing, modeling, and quality assurance techniques will be pivotal in advancing science, technology, and enhancing public policy decision-making. Accelerating the achievement of the SDGs requires building an inclusive and integrated network of communities with connectivity, digital abilities, affordability, and accessibility to understand our changing planet, support our natural resources, ensure food security, and advance human health and the bioeconomy. Together, we can shape the global vision for data for development that reinforces social, economic, environmental, and governance goals across the agenda and accelerates progress on the SDGs. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you, United States of America. Now I give the floor to Colombia.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Firstly, allow me to congratulate UNCTAD on the very relevant choice of topic. My thanks also to the Secretariat for the richness of the content of the presentations, all of which were very constructive. My country feels honoured to have had the opportunity to listen to the various perspectives that we have heard this morning. I should also say that we attach great importance to the establishment of this group. Only 18 minutes walk away at WIPO, we have seen work going on for many years now on fair payment for performers on digital platforms. It has yet to be achieved. But it leads me to the crucial need for us to address the question of intellectual property and the obstacles that it may pose, generated as a result of entirely understandable, legitimate needs to protect, but which are meaning that today many performers, singers in Latin America, Africa, and from throughout the world are not being fairly paid for their creations. So I would like us to ensure that this topic is not overlooked. In terms of academic input, I had a question for the speaker from the academic sphere, Ms. Calgary. My apologies if I mispronounce your name, but I wonder if there has been any progress made, if any, as to how to come up with a structure internationally where the various organizations involved, UNESCO, WIPO, the IPU, all of those working on these topics might have the opportunity to come together. Might academia be able to shed light on how it could be possible to bring these organizations together, perhaps to generate recommendations or other outputs in order to work together and pool resources on AI in particular? Thank you, and my apologies for speaking at length.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Mr. Chairman, there is no doubt that at the current time it is very necessary to consider issues of this type around data governance and artificial intelligence. Proof of this, or an example, comes from last month and the adoption of a UNGA resolution on this topic. A resolution on the safe and reliable use of artificial intelligence. This marks, without a doubt, a turning point. Our thanks go to the Secretariat of the Commission, and we thank them also for the report. In the report, but also the General Assembly resolution, reference is made to the numerous challenges around data flows across borders and the way to address those. These include security, confidentiality, and also ethical matters and social cultural considerations, which may not necessarily pertain in the same way in different regions and different states. Among challenges, I would also mention matters of fair competition, particularly in developing countries, in view of the platforms that exist and which have at their disposal huge quantities of data. A further challenge would be standards and organizational matters in view of the discrepancies that may exist between regions and states. All of these factors could complicate this work for all stakeholders, both public sector and private sector. Challenges posed by fragmentation of data processing and treatment also exist. We've heard today from experts that one of the challenges would be the presence of a broader framework or mechanism to address these challenges, whilst at the same time ensuring best use of data in order to reap the fruits of AI for all. I thank you.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. Now I give the floor to Turkey.
Monsieur le vice-président, mon intervenant n'est pas présent dans la salle.
Vice Chair, the speaker is not in the room. Could we possibly speak later? Thank you.
Thank you. Now we give the floor to Paraguay.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my thanks to the Commission and to the panelists for the very valuable input they have shared with Member States today. Thank you also for giving me the floor. As far as Paraguay is concerned, of course, this also goes for other developing countries, members of this Commission. Data plays a key role in securing sustainable development. A clear-cut example in our case is the National Development Plan in the period up to 2030, which has 4 strategic pillars: poverty reduction, social development, inclusive economic growth, and Paraguay's inclusion in the world, and political and institutional strengthening. We want to increase living standards and achieve sustainable development, and to this end, we are committed to the digital economy. We need, to this end, appropriate telecom services and networks to meet needs. Here, we consider that policies adopted multilaterally and regionally need to take into account, as we are doing, the structural needs of developing countries in order to best harness data and related technology. As we've seen, there are some countries that are forging ahead in this area, but developing countries still have to deal with some more basic limitations. As the distinguished panelists mentioned, digital infrastructure is a critical starting point. In Paraguay, data and data tech policy continues to face significant challenges in terms of service coverage and expansion. A major challenge currently involves the rollout of the most recent fiber optics technology to all areas of the country. We have the scientific, we believe that this Commission rather has a key role to play in terms of defining practical, ethical and appropriate uses of technology, which could be of benefit to developing countries. It might be useful perhaps also to serve as a meeting point for consultation and sharing of questions, and might also offer a forum for obtaining funds and tech transfer. We have identified some major contributions. These have been touched on quite significantly this morning already, and I will speak in brief, therefore. For example, technology and data enables informed decision-making. It enables decision-makers to prioritize their work and properly earmark funds. It also enables proper evaluation and the pinpointing of inequality with disaggregation of data by categories such as age, sex, region, etc. Enabling us to pinpoint vulnerabilities. Data can enable services to citizens to be improved, improving effectiveness of public management and rendering it more transparent, whilst enabling citizens to participate. Open data is important since it fosters citizen participation and offers information to enable civil society and various other interested parties to have some oversight and also to advocate more effectively. It's with this in mind that Paraguay and its government has a whole corpus of open data administered by the relevant authorities. International cooperation, of course, plays an important role in facilitating cooperation and exchange of good practice with countries that are all seeking to achieve the same objectives. With this in mind, Paraguay has exchanged experience with other Latin American countries, looking at how to foster open data capacity building. On the other hand, Chair, there may be certain risks entailed. Data quality, for example, if data is imprecise or incomplete, it may lead to erroneous conclusions. With this in mind, Paraguay needs to work to improve data gathering and management. We are working with the National Statistics Institute to develop a comprehensive data management system on the basis of our national population registers. This could serve as a basis for data from other ministries, which is managed by other ministries. The digital divide needs to be dealt with in addition to social exclusion. ensuring that marginalised groups can be included. Lastly, interoperability and coordination in order to best harness data in implementing Agenda 2030. It's important to ensure that this interoperability exists between data systems with proper coordination. To this end, it is important to invest in capacity building and skills development in data management. This includes training of professionals in data science and stats analysis at the local level, along with data management specialists. We had the very interesting example from Algeria. Thank you very much, Chairman. We will submit a longer version of the statement for consideration by members.
We have barely 10 minutes to closing. I still want to appeal to speakers intervening. I still have some names that I want to give you the floor, but please summarize and keep your statements short, between 3 to 5 minutes. If you can do it in 3 minutes, great. Now I see Turkey is back in the room. I give you the floor.
Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today's discussion on the data for development is pivotal in context of our rapidly evolving technological landscape. Data not only propels progress and innovation, but also serves as a cornerstone in shaping the trajectory of our societies. In the realm of decision-making and attaining sustainable development, leveraging data effectively is paramount. Data for development involves harnessing data-driven insights, analysis, and applications to propel sustainable development goals forward. It acts as a patent tool for comprehending and addressing societal needs, thereby augmenting the efficiency of public services. Through data-driven decision-making, policymakers can allocate resources more effectively, fostering inclusive growth and enhancing the citizens' well-being. Furthermore, the data serves as a catalyst for innovation and entrepreneurship, especially significant for developing nations. Cultivating an environment conducive to innovation empowers individuals and communities, fueling economic growth, job creation, and social advancement. This can unlock the latent potential of billions around the globe. However, as we embark on the transformative journey, we must confront numerous challenges. Foremost among them is ensuring data privacy and security. With the proliferation of data collection and analysis, robust safeguards are imperative to safeguard individuals' and communities' rights and interests. These necessities measures to protect personal privacy, mitigate the risks of data breach, and prevent the misuse of or abuse of data. Additionally, bridging the digital divide is paramount to ensure equitable access to the benefits of data-driven progress. This mandates investments in infrastructure, capacity building, and digital literacy initiatives, enabling broad participation in the digital economy. In conclusion, data holds vast potential to revolutionize our world for better, fostering sustainable development, inclusive growth, individual empowerment. Yet realizing this potential and safeguarding against its misuse and abuse requires collective action from governments, civil society, the private sector, and the international community. Through collaboration, we can harness the power of data to craft a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Turkey. Now I give the floor to Egypt.
Thank you, Chair. شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, allow us to thank the Commission for this very detailed report. This is a document of great importance in terms of data and development. The report covers a number of issues, including health and the environment. I would like to thank all of the speakers who enriched our debate today. Chairman, in Egypt, we believe that development of data is one of the key pillars of the digital transformation. For many years now, we have been working to secure progress in this area. At the legislative level, we have legislation in place on personal data protection, and we are planning to set up a data protection centre Last year, we adopted an ethical data charter as well as a strategy on artificial intelligence. We are currently undertaking a study with a view to enacting laws on data and its development. Egypt has in place an ambitious plan for dissemination of services electronically via fiber optics. In order to increase coverage, we are also launching various standard-setting frameworks in order to develop the cloud and the Internet of Things. Numerous public services are made available online. We believe that there is a need to further develop data supporting creation and innovation, and that is why for many years now my country has been supporting the development of AI and emerging technology. 20 innovation centres have been set up in my country to host startups and freelance professionals. We have also set up a centre of excellence to foster the use of ICTs and other emergency technologies in order to enable us to address national challenges, ensuring that we have in place the necessary trained personnel to do so. We are also looking at the application of AI in health and agriculture. In conclusion, we support all international efforts to strengthen data governance, taking into account the challenges that have been mentioned in the report. I thank you.
Now I give the floor to Brazil.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to the panelists for their insightful presentations. As was widely spoken, data is at the center of the development of emerging technologies. But however, the data-driven digital economy is becoming increasingly concentrated. According to the commendable UNCTAD's digital economy report from 2021, the world's largest digital platforms now control most stages of the data value chain, from collection and transmission of data to storage and analysis. In this context, the discussion about data governance cannot be dissociated from the discussion on development and the promotion of a more equitable digital transformation around the world. In this regard, the development of common data sets for the public interest should be encouraged, with particular attention to public data that is critical for helping solve challenges including climate change, public health, economic development, and capacity building, among others. The responsible sharing of open source model through technology transfer policies, as well as computational resources, and also the fostering of education, digital education must come along. The benefits of digitalization include tackling issues such as internet connectivity, the high costs associated with data, and infrastructure development. These regulatory frameworks should also encompass the protection of privacy and security of personal data, consistent with applicable laws, while actively facilitating the use of such data, balancing innovation with the protection of individual rights. In this context, international collaboration is important to maintain an open environment for discussion and exchange of best practices, and the CSTD serves as an important forum for this, helping promote discussions on cross-border data flows while ensuring privacy and data protection. And then, to sum up, digital and data divides need to be bridged, which means ensuring meaningful digital transformation in all countries, leaving no one behind. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you. Apologies to the UK. Now I give you the floor. United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. No problem at all. I'm Nigel Hickson. I work in the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. First of all, I'd like to thank sincerely the Secretariat for the paper and for the exposition of the paper we heard earlier from the Director. It's a comprehensive paper, a thorough paper, and one which hopefully we'll have more time to debate in the future. Thank you also to the inspiring presentations we heard earlier. If someone had come into this room without reading the paper, then one might have thought that the session was on artificial intelligence. It just shows the linkage between data and AI and the progress we have made since a few years ago when, if we had this discussion, we'd be mainly talking about data protection. Now we're talking on the benefits of using data, the benefits of the free flow of data, the real practical solutions that the data-driven economy has made for healthcare, for disease protection, disease prevention, and of course, environmental areas. The UK is optimistic about the future use and promotion and development of data processes. We believe that we have already shown, both in our own economy and in other economies, how data can be used for good, how it can be used for development, and how it can benefit everyone. The sharing, the transfers of data between the public sector, the private sector, is so important. In the UK, we often say that the best example of this is that you can now report where a pothole is in the road and it will be fixed. Well, actually, it won't necessarily be fixed, but at least you can report it. So looking to the future, Mr. Chairman, as I said, we're optimistic. We think great progress can be made in the use of data, and coupled with artificial intelligence, we see real benefits to society. We think some of the issues that are raised in the paper in terms of data protection, in terms of privacy, can be overcome, and we are optimistic on that as well. So finally, the question I had, which I'm not sure can be answered today, but do the panel see, or do the panel think that AI and the advances of AI can bring forward a better relationship with data? And how do the panel see the quality of data either promoting or inhibiting the development of AI? Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last intervention I can accommodate for this session. The remaining interventions, I will take them after the break. Now I give the floor to my panelists, each a minute for last-minute thoughts and insights before we close the session. We'll start from...
Yes. I want to pick up on one issue, and that is from the Swiss delegation in terms of the use of existing data. And this is a big challenge that we have globally. We have a huge amount of data available, and how can we tap into that? There is that barrier of consent. I spoke about data trusts in my initial contribution, and I do believe that it is an issue that we need to overcome if we're going to properly utilise data and the potential provided with artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you again for sharing the time here. I might also point to, I think, a comment Turkey made on data as the cornerstone for preserving our society, and I think that probably encompasses a lot of kind of the ambition of artificial intelligence in benefiting all of humanity. Data becomes a fundamental input to the preservation of our languages, our cultures, and our humanity, and so I think the importance of that and how the United Kingdom perhaps even posed that question it's inextricably tied between data and artificial intelligence, and perhaps more collaboration there is definitely valued and needed. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks. This has been a wonderful discussion, I think, and in fact, yesterday, today, in terms of issues around data, how to make sure everyone's represented, how to make sure it's inclusive, etc. I'll just stress one key point. Even as we grapple with the issues around data, confidentiality, privacy, etc., we need to be starting to think fairly quickly about how the AI solutions that are starting to be developed with today's data, in spite of all the issues with the data. It's not inclusive, it's got issues, but AI solutions are starting to be developed. They're not going to wait for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years for us to figure out all the policy frameworks. We need to get smart very quickly in terms of developing solutions that can assist hundreds of millions of people, billions of people around the world in terms of improving education, healthcare, agriculture, etc. And as I said in my remarks earlier, development of the AI solution based on data is just the starting point. Very few people globally are thinking about how do we actually deploy these solutions at scale. To me, that's an even more challenging problem as a group, but there are examples around the world of this happening. And I think if we can develop the right collaborative frameworks on sharing information, learning from each other, not just on data frameworks, but on actual development and deployment of large-scale, high-impact AI solutions, that's what people around the world are truly looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor?
Just a quick thank you from me. It's been a real pleasure hearing from the different countries that have spoken and intervened from the floor about the progress that's being made and also the challenges that you're facing. A quick word to the question that was posed by Colombia. There is the UN High-Level Advisory Board on AI. They're actually trying to stitch together a lot of the work that is being done across the board. I think we just need to wait until some of this stuff comes to a head. There is a lot of work to be done, so it necessarily means there's a lot of people looking into it. And I think to the United Kingdom, I think with data-driven technologies now taking off and AI technologies depending on data, it shines a light much more on data governance and means that we're moving a lot more quickly than we ever have before on these topics, which I applaud and I'm here for. So I look forward to these continued discussions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now I have Professor Yi Zheng online for your last-minute words.
Thank you for Professor Karyagani mentioning the UN High-Level Advisory Body on AI's work, which I'm also part of. I think by that, really, that our work there is really not to synthesize, to give suggestions, synthesizing all the UN efforts in different branches, but also really that how the UN system can coordinate with different regional networks. Last but not least, I wanted to say data sharing to promote data for development is really essential in a way that for last year, the risks of AI all over the world has actually been 10 times compared to the year of 2022. So that's horrible. That means we don't share so much experience related to the risks of digitalization and AI in general, and that risks are happening again and again everywhere. So linking all the data worldwide and sharing experiences are the next step we have to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That concludes this session. I wish to thank all of our panelists and speakers for their participation and for their contributions to these very brilliant discussions we just had. This afternoon, the CSTD session will resume at 3 p.m. to continue with item 3A on the priority theme, data for development, and more specifically, we will have a panel on the UN systems work on AI. We will also take the last two organizations, I think it was ITU and the Association for Progressive Communication, their intervention in the afternoon session. Please note that there will be a lunchtime side event with a panel on data-driven services for countries. It will start at 1:30 p.m. in room 22. Now the meeting is, before I adjourn, there's an intervention, an announcement.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to inform you that the Division of Conference Management of UNOG has prepared an online survey for this meeting, and they would very much appreciate if you could, microphone's off.
It's this one is on now.
Yes, the technician doesn't want me to speak. Once again, the Division of Conference Management of UNOG has prepared an online survey, and they would like very much if you could answer this survey. It will only take a few minutes. What we will do is we'll send you via the registration platform a link to do that survey, and we would very much appreciate it. And also for the side event at lunchtime, sandwiches will be served. And tomorrow for the breakfast side event, there will be coffee and croissant, and at lunchtime also again sandwiches. Thank you.
On that note, have a wonderful lunch. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I turned my mic on for you, and then it swapped it over, and so it turned yours off.
Yeah, that's the problem.